houseworking, they will go back to the work. And this, I think this would not be happen in our case, because I think we have proved to you that we have a policy to force men if we give them the money, financial support, financial incentive towards men. We have a policy to force men to actually stay in the house to do the housework, And actually, from our status quo, we have mentioned to you that actually our purpose to let the men to know that the duty of women and men in the house is not decided by the gender, it's by the shared responsibility of the both sides. And the second rebuttal is about whether it's against the feminism principles or something like that. And no, thank you. So the status quo is that they say that the feminism principle is that for the women to actually to change the situation by their own effort, but actually they say that this motion is based on compensate sacrifices of the men, like their agreement to go into the housework. But actually, the status quo is that nowadays the social movements of the feminism, like there are a lot of feminism social movements in the developing countries, such as South Africa or something like that. These social movement has already exist, and the women would rather to sacrifice their life to fight for their rights. But the situation is that the men did not take the women into consideration. So actually, if we do not use the financial support to incentive men to go into the to go into the family, to take the house ability of the family, then we do not provide the possibility for the men to let them know the difficulty of to let them know about how the women actually is everyday's work about the women, and to actually to have the deep understanding of the women, the creature itself. So this is our second rebuttal. And the third rebuttal, they say that this motion is rather like a compensation for males rather than for the women. They also, the motion provides a compensation for males instead of providing compensation for women. The first thing is that we do not think that this is a compensation, but rather a motivation. And the second thing is that we think that there is also a compensation for women in another way. The compensation is that if the women were released of the burden of housework in the family, they would rather to go out to working outside. And for those who really want to go outside, they have the ability, they have the opportunity to discover their potentiality. So this is my three rebuttals. And move to the main direction of today's debate. From our government side, no thank you. The main direction of today's debate is to prove or increase the low status of women in the developing countries, where women do not receive correct treatment, or to say they have been severely discriminated, and to form a correct picture of the responsibility from males and females shared in the family. So actually, for the first thing is that do the government really have the money to do so? Since the budget is decided by the government based on the condition of the whole country, so from our government side, we don't think it's a very big problem. The third thing is that is this policy really effective? First of all, they say that not all men want to. First of all, it's not all men want to go out to do the jobs. Actually, in China, many men would like to stay in the home and take care of children while women go out. So this is the first point. And the second point is that for the men who are unwilling to do so, I have mentioned in the first policy that we have the policy to force men because the government side have the financial support for the men to work in the house. And so, and at least we try to provide an opportunity for the men to experience to decide whether the job is appropriate or not. So the status quo is that for those unwilling, or both for the unwilling and willing men, that nowadays the men's no thank you. The men's choice is based on the stereotypes of whether they could stereotypes of the man is to be masculine and so something like that. And the difference between the gender and sex, I have to mention, is that sex are born with nature, and gender is based on the strong stereotypes imposed by the society. Men is supposed to be masculine, and they should be go to work, and women should stay home and should be like be independent towards men. So actually we have provided you the good effects, our policy. Because for males we have mentioned that housing is very hard, and if you do not provide them with a chance to experience, to know the responsibility of the women inside home, they do not like, first of all, to form a deep understanding of the women, so they kind of actually like they deepen the misunderstanding between the two males. And the second thing, we have mentioned to you the engagement with the children, and so the relationship is really important. And for the females, is that the best, first of all, we provide their opportunity to go out. Why is it important? Because we have mentioned that in this situation, status for the gender gap is really big. So first of all, they can prove women have the ability to compete with men. So actually, we provide advance for the women under the case that actually men would not like to give the chance for women to go out. The second thing is about the potentialities, and the third thing is about to change the stereotypes based on the long history gender stereotypes. So above all the points, proud to propose.
Mr. Speaker, we are not a misogynist team, obviously. Both teams here in this debate want gender equality in those countries. We both want progress. So when the majority of the case outline, coming from the Prime Minister until the very last speaker, talks about the goals that they would like to achieve and the values and the end pictures, we completely agree that we would like to go to those kind of societies. But where this debate should ultimately lie is not about whether we like women or not, but in terms of the roadmap of how to get there, especially in those kind of contexts, and analyze as thus what kind of countries these are, what kind of cultures these people are bound to, and therefore how can we push them to change their behaviors. So we think that because we are the only ones that make actual realistic actual analysis, we should be taking this debate home. In other words, what we want to support here is a model where women's rights, based on increased women's capacities, is creating structural changes, so things like increased education, participation of a woman in politics, and basic other rights that are not happening in a lot of countries like yours, because some countries women can't drive. We think these are the basic targets that we should be pointing at. But mind you, the common denominator here is that we are trying to reach for equality so as to make a situation where women and men, regardless of their gender, can participate in different activities, whether it be work, whether it be homemaking, in a fair manner. We think that's the true road to progress, where we can have things like, like men playing, spending more time at home with their daughters and sons, which was the benefit coming from this side, okay? So, let's move on to some of the questions I would like to ask in this debate. First question, does this change males, especially conservative males' mindset, right? We have to talk about what context this debate is held in, because the government team already agreed that these countries are, because of religious or cultural reasons, they're very misogynistic, and they are oftentimes subject to poverty as well, right? In those kind of cases, a little girl, don't be a little girl kind of notation is very strong. What do I mean by this? When I was growing up, parents told me, don't be a little girl, it means be strong. Like they said in the government whip, be masculine. You're forced with the stereotype that you also have to be the breadwinner if you're a male. That you have to be a strong guy who can take care of his families. That is evident in all the media and all the culture that you have and education you have to subject to when you're growing up. So when they're talking about how there's many guys out there who would like to stay at home or whatever, here's how it actually happens, okay? If they do take the deals and if they do take the programs, then what they'll be subjected to is a lot of hate, because they will be the little girls who cannot take care of the family by working outside and make, bring bacon home. are breadwinning. They can't be the breadwinner, they can't fulfill their job. That's why the government needs to pay them. And guess where the government gets the money from? The rest of society. So they're the tax thieves who stay at home, don't do what a man's job is supposed to be, and just lie around and touching their bellies or whatever. Because they told us, because they don't respect homemaking as a very proper job according to their context, right? So they won't have any respect for males who also stay at home and become house husbands either, if they're so chauvinistic. So they will not be subject to a lot of praise. In other words, like we told you from the start, a lot of the moderate and a lot of the liberal males who want to actually participate in these kind of activities cannot now. In fact, there are ideas about how they should have women equality is actually further delegitimized, because every time a male working as a house husband goes like, I want my wife to have a career, you'll be like, no, that's because you just want to stay at home, not do anything, because that's the stereotype they have, and just earn a lot of money off our taxes. This is why you are going to decrease participation. But even if we take your best case scenario and they do take these current programs, like the sudden realization that, oh, I did housework and now it's so hard, so women's life must be so hard. And the government with idea of understanding women as a creature, that doesn't happen. Because when we talk about women's lives and how hard it is in those kind of chauvinistic countries, especially in poverty countries, is upon a multi-layered facet, right? It's not just about you do the homemaking and it's so hard cooking and doing the dishes. It's more on the fact that you are discriminated from the start of your birth to education and things like family resource allocation in terms of nutrition, the amount of sexual harassment and rape culture that you're exposed to, and how much respect you get from your family members as well. But you actually delegitimize all of that into a single layer of you doing housework, and you're saying that, oh yeah, I did the dishes the last week and I understand what a woman's job is supposed to be. It's not that hard, because they cannot comprehend the entirety of woman's life by just doing house husbandry. And then that's what we told you from the start, that they will actually create more margins under their context of chauvinistic society, that it wasn't so hard, it wasn't so difficult. I don't know why these people are complaining about gender issues. That's why we delegitimize feminist movement even further, right? But secondly, what kind of social narratives will the motion be interpreted as? I'm saying be interpreted as because they told us that they would like to create these kind of social narratives, but when you put these social narratives into a chauvinistic society, how people understand this is very different. What I mean by this, the realistic picture that they draw for us is that the big, fat male government officials are announcing that, oh, you know what, guys, guys are cool, so if a guy works at home, then they'll get paid, not the woman. What this message actually gets interpreted in a realistic case scenario is that women don't deserve the pay. Why is that realistic? Because that's already the notion they have. Women shouldn't touch money. Women shouldn't be in the labor market. And now you're creating the notion even further, like we told you from the first speaker. The women don't deserve to pay, but for men, they do. Because they did something that's unnatural. They're actually strengthening that kind of gender stereotype and saying that men should be compensated for something that they didn't deserve to do. So male or female do deserve to do it, right? But it also further, even in the government team's best case scenario, it further isolates the woman by saying that, sorry, I can't read my handwriting. Oh, by discriminating motherhood. Because for most of the females, their leadership and their role comes from being a good mother. In a lot of cases, like we told you from cultural feminism, there are ideas to change society and contribute to it by being a mother and taking care of families. But now, even in your best case scenario, you're saying that that kind of role is useless, that kind of role is so useless, we're not paying for you. And this kind of underlining has not been responded to by the opposition, the government team, right? Lastly, we told you a lot, especially from the second speaker, about how this motion will impact the job market in negative ways. Because the government's assumption that women just go out into society to find jobs and become role models is really, really wrong. Because even these people, usually if you have average or higher pay, then they won't let the woman out because it's a conservative house. So it's usually the poor family households. So the poor wives, who usually don't have a lot of skills, will be the ones pushed out into society, but they usually can't find the jobs because we told you, job markets are very hostile towards women. So you'll create even further discrimination against women where they can't find jobs, but they are not even being paid for doing the housework at home. So they're being seen as even useless people out there. But it also further marginalizes women at work that's already happening, the good progress at our side, because it further strengthens the notion of gender wage gap and discrimination. Because, oh, this guy, guy has to take care of his whole family, but your husband gets paid, so I'm gonna pay more. Or the idea that, I really want to employ a male worker because these are societies are. But we need to match the incentive that you have at home husbandry. So we're gonna pay you more. These kind of gaps are actually incentivized and strengthened because we're already working and talking about in a chauvinistic society. That's why opposition team has a clear sense of where the context is, and that's why we win.
Okay, good.
Yeah, one reply, speaker one. Okay, thanks, upweb, after the speaker.
열심히 준비했는데.
Sorry.
Mr. Speaker, every single policy that is conducted for the benefit of a minority group within society has to be adjudicated based on the harms that it inflicts compared to the benefits or the potential benefits that it will provide. What I will do within my reply speech will provide to you two stakeholders to adjudicate upon whether or not the proposal coming from the affirmative side actually benefits the feminist movement within these conservative societies. Let's first move on to the discussion upon how it will affect females. What we have clearly told you under our side of the house is that it's going to reinforce the concept that work or like household work is sacred and should be exclusive towards women, primarily because men are individuals who require incentives in order to conduct this particular work because they require like government provided subsidies, while women don't necessarily need these types of subsidies in other words, women don't require this type of nudge. What we heard from the affirmative side was that because men are going to work within these areas, they are capable of relating to women in general, and through that relation, they're able to understand the difficulties and therefore suddenly be emancipated upon their concept of women. We've clearly told you two reasons upon why that is insufficient reason to prove why there is sufficient benefit within status quo. First of all, our opposition side has already provided to you a reason upon how their motion is extremely restricted on a simple quantity of people who are going to understand the difficulties of women in general. We've clearly told you that individual people who are going to accept this proposal are going to be moderates, or they're going to be poor individuals within society who are already excluded from the economic opportunities provided within these societies. But second of all, even if we agree that a lot of people accept, we've clearly told you the two case scenarios. One in where men actually perceive it to be an easy task, and number two in where men perceive it to be a difficult task. If it is an easy task in the perspective of men, conservative men, by the way, which is their best case scenario, we think that these people are necessarily going to degrade women because they consider this work to be inferior and they understand that women deserve